we've become confused and concluded that the fight is over, that there's no fight, right? But I was like, without struggle, there's no progress. Our parents came here, right? And they worked hard, and like you were talking about this, they worked hard, and they said keep a job and whatever. And like a lot of these, like like a lot of our relatives are like get a job and stay in the job and show consistency. But we are very mercantile. We did own businesses in Barbados and Jamaica and Trinidad, et cetera, et cetera. But like a lot of us came, and our parents did what they could so we could have more, so we could be educated in the system, et cetera.
Yeah.
And we took that as a sign that we had made it, right? And so, I call a friend and I was like, yo, there's a job doing whatever, wherever. And they're like, oh, I'm not traveling that far for that job. And I'm like, but your dad gets up and doesn't. They're like, yeah, but my dad did all of this so that I wouldn't have. No, he didn't do all of this so you wouldn't have to do it. He did all of this so that you would be able to do it. You know what I mean? So that you could take the block and put a block on top of it, not take a block and knock out another block and knock out another block. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's a part of the problem. Like with us, we're not in a mentality, and we have to stop sugarcoating. There's a lot of issues. We have a lot of issues.
We sugarcoat a lot, and we have a lot of, there's a lot of people out there that's all they want to hear is the sugar-coated portion of it. But you need that raw truth, and as bad as it may sound, and sometimes you don't want to hear, you need to hear it.
Sometimes it's not fun, and we do not have the luxury of having fun. We're in a crisis. We're those children. Look at, like, we're in COVID. There's going to be a digital divide created by this thing. There's communities where they don't have internet and don't have computers. If you don't have computers, how do your kids learn? Right? I was talking to my daughter about this. I was like, just think critically, Kayla. Who are the people that you see out there working? People on the front lines, right? And we can get into economics, we can get into redlining, we can get into mortgages and all of this kind of stuff. But the people on the front lines are the poorest people in the society. The poorest people in the society, and the people who like have been malaligned in the society, who came here from other countries and they said, you know what, your medical degree is not worthy. They're calling them in. Oh, you want to come and work? Right? I'm like, if you go in the LCBO, if you go in the grocery stores, you go in Tim Hortons, those people don't have choices.
Right.
They're there because they have to be there. If they don't go to work and potentially die, they're not eligible for CERB. They have to go and work at Tim Hortons. They can't say they're not coming in. They are, you know what I mean? And they are the poorest people. Okay? The owner of Tim Hortons is not in. Well, I don't know who the owner. You know what I mean? But like the owner of Tim Hortons, the CEO of TELUS is not in.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the owner of Tim Hortons is Burger King, and he's at home comfortable.
Yeah. Right. Whoever that person is at home comfortable. Those people are on the front lines risking their lives. Those are the poorest people in society. Go to the store. The security guard, the cashiers, those are people who even like, they need money to go to school for university, or they have to work. They have families at home. I watched a family
situation isn't designed for them. Like that's not what their job is entitled to give them that opportunity. And in regards to the corporate world, I mean, a lot of corporate companies are, letting their employees work from home. But let's face it, when this crisis is over and they start looking at money that they've lost and they start doing those cuts, guess who's getting cut?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I've seen it, man. It's always been the minorities that get cut from their corporate jobs, man.
Yeah, and it's layers and layers and layers and layers. It's systemics. It's education. It's our choices. Right? We have to be honest about some of that stuff too, right?
Yeah.
It is all of these things, but we are at the lower rungs of those things, and we are going to suffer after this COVID thing happens. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Yeah. So if you ain't building a plan right now, you better build a plan to be able to sustain and to be able to reinvent yourself. And we spoke about this before, Kathy. Like you got to start building now, and that building block has to be solid. Because again, if you want to sit there and sugarcoat things, you're going to be left in a dark space. And a lot of people are going to get depressed.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're gonna have a lot of mental health issues.
They are
You
already
know,
depressed, yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, we're gonna have a lot of mental health issues. Um, we're gonna suffer. Like honestly, we're gonna suffer. Like we're in a country. Canada's a better place than the States, but we don't have any large corporations here. They're all gonna go back, right? I was like, the large companies, like the banks and whatever, they'll be fine. But like, we don't have a Hudson Bay again. Like I think Canadian Tire and Shoppers Drug Mart, maybe two of the own. Best Buy got sold. Like or Best Buy bought Future Shop. We don't have Canadian corporations by and large. We have small businesses,
Right.
and the middle class is going to get pushed into the lower class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I mean, think about it. Our biggest companies in Canada, right? Like Bell, Telus,
yeah, Loblaws. Yeah,
Loblaws, yeah, right. The Superstore, right? Those are our biggest companies.
yeah.
And and I can tell you, those places are revolving doors.
Oh yeah.
There's
yeah.
a reorg. Like I remember back in the days when I first started working, like you'd have a reorg maybe once every 3-4 years, 5 years. Now reorgs are like every year, every few months, it's a reorg.
And like, like if we're speaking specifically about the Black community, we have to change our mindsets too. Like you go into the bank or you go into the Walmart or whatever, and I know that they have to say it because they're told to say, you can use the self-checkout, or you can use the teller. And I'm like, I'm trying to help you. And our mentality by and large is, I don't care, I'm getting paid to do nothing.
Right.
Well, keep that mentality and see if you have a job in the next few years.
Right.
And then this goes to these conversations that we need to have about STEM for our children, right? Like we, by and large, we're like, like I think Jay-Z said it on his first thing. He was like, we're Cameron, sports, drugs, and entertainment. I was like, forget drugs, but sports and entertainment. Like we will focus on sports. We'll focus on entertainment. But what would our children be able to do if we took the amount of time that we have them dribbling a ball or like dancing or any of these other things, if we had them doing math and science and computers? Because anybody who doesn't know computers is not going to survive. Period. You know what I mean?
But there's also an issue with those other things. I think it's great we get into sports and entertainment. I love that part. But the math and the science and stuff like that, getting jobs in those fields, Ian, you can get that education, but I hate to say it, but we're going to give it to them raw today, Kathy. We don't get those jobs. As smart as we are,
I don't know.
Get those jobs. I'm telling you. I think
especially
get those jobs.
Doctor or a lawyer. Listen, there are so many things that you can do now.
You can do it, but we don't get those jobs.
I just think a lot of Black people aren't in law school. A lot of Black people aren't in med school.
That's not true.
That's not true at all.
That's not true at all.
That's not true at all.
Canada, I'm just saying because the jobs are there.
My daughter has a degree in criminology. She can't get a job.
Okay, but maybe not in Toronto. What if she went out of the city?
Why?
Why does she need to do that, Kathy?
But there's a lot of professions where you have to go out of the city to go get your.
But there's a lot of job opportunities here. You know what they keep telling her? Oh, well, you don't have the experience. How am I going to get the experience? So she said, they said volunteer. They said
I only
volunteer.
say that because Toronto's a big city center.
Guess what the volunteer said?
A lot of them want you to go get experience somewhere else and then come back.
Guess what the volunteer said to her? Oh, we can't give you the volunteer job because you don't have experience.
The volunteer job?
The volunteer job said she needed experience. My daughter has a diploma from college and a degree from university for criminology.
Right.
She can't get a job.
Mm-hmm. And there are hundreds and hundreds of Black people in law school. They can't get articling positions.
Exactly.
But here's my question. It's just like when you're in radio, television, broadcasting, they say go out of the city, get a job outside the city. So I would have to assume that applies to all areas.
Don't assume, Kathy.
You know what I mean?
No. So what you don't take into consideration is the nepotism, and and this is like something I even talked to my daughter about. I'm like, we have a mentality that says, I want to do it for myself. I'm like, your father is Ian Andre Espinet. I know a couple of people, but you want to do it by yourself. Well, don't think that other people don't get jobs based on who they know.
Right.
Right?
That's fair.
The nepotism in this country is like on the next level. Like where and to your point, we shouldn't have to go anywhere. If you're qualified, you're qualified. If you're the
Exactly.
best in class, you're the best in class. We have to stop taking these things, like we've internalized so long that we're not deserving of
Right.
the things that we've earned, right? That just two people with 90s and they're like we're one black person and somebody else, and that person can get a job, but we have to go to Calgary. Why?
Right.
Why do we have to go to Calgary?
Exactly.
You did all the friggin' things that the system told you to do,
Yeah.
We're at
but
the
you
point
still
right
don't have
now
the same rights.
we're at the point right now, Ian, where I have friends that are like, man, I don't even think I should give my child a black name,
Oh, for sure,
because
for sure.
when they apply for jobs, they're worried. They're
Yeah.
worried you're gonna get pushed aside. Nope, that sounds black. No, I'm not hiring you.
It's layers and layers and layers and layers of mental slavery.
Mhm.
It's that like, using an African as an example. Okay, so when in Rome, do as the Romans do, and all of these things. But I was like, if this is Canada, and we are not a melting pot, but a mosaic.
Right.
And which one are we?
We're a melting pot.
A melting pot, right? Like, are we a mosaic? I think in the States they're a melting pot. Everybody becomes one, and
Yeah,
we.
the state,
Oh, everybody has their
the
own.
states is
we're
a
a
melting
mosaic.
pot because everybody becomes American.
Yeah, we're a
melting
mosaic.
pot.
We're a
Okay.
mosaic.
Technically multicultural,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
even that's a facade. But
Yeah.
The
So
mosaic.
we're a
Okay.
mosaic, right?
We're mosaic. Okay.
But sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Trying to figure out
Melting
mosaic and
pot.
melting pot and mosaic.
State.
Anyway, yeah, no, like we have to.
Doing Rome as the Romans do.
Yeah, so we should be able to do what it is that we like. Like business attire is business attire, and a suit is a suit.
right.
But I was like, if it is that we are a mosaic and we're talking about people being able to be equals in a country that respects multiculturalism,
Right.
then they need to respect the individualism of the people that are coming here.
Right.
Like some people will say you come to a country, you know what it is. The official languages are French and English. I get it.
Right.
You come to a country, the Catholicism is, but it is like, so does it just stay the way that it's been forever? Or can we
No,
talk
gotta
about the
change.
fact, are we going to talk about the fact that it's based on bias? Things are based on bias from any possible perceivable perspective that you can look at, whether it be an IQ test, right? If I go to the States and I do an IQ test and it has questions on the president of the United States, and I come from Barbados, would I know that? Right? Like, so these things have to like change because they are intrinsically based in bias.
Yeah.
Right? These systems are intrinsically based in bias, in theft and like suppression and
Yeah.
I was reading about Malvern the other day. I was just like, the low income LEAP, the low income assistance program or whatever that they did for immigrants when they came here, knowing that they're putting them on radioactive land,
Yeah.
right? With property that like can never go up in value. You know what I mean? And mortgage companies not wanting to give out mortgages in certain areas because they've hit the tipping point and white people have moved out. And so they devalue them. And then areas that that pay less taxes because their properties are worth less have less services. So their children don't get whiteboards at school and computers where other areas do. These are systemic issues that need to be addressed. And we have to stop coming out and defending the system because we've internalized that we don't deserve things, and we do. We pay friggin' taxes. The amount of taxes that I paid, you know what I mean? Like we pay taxes. We have a right to services.
But the system has never been designed. It's never been designed for us to uplift us, right? So a lot of these laws weren't built with us in mind. Right?
Yeah,
we came as an afterthought, right? So we're still living by these old slave owner mentality laws. To be honest,
systems by and large aren't created to help anybody. They're created, like there's 1% or 5%. Like I think 10% of the world's population has 96% of its wealth. Systems like capitalism, these things are not built, but they're definitely not built for us because
right.
we came here as indentured servants. We came here, you know, like when black people came here in the 70s, there were porters and
Mhm.
like on the CN rail, we
Yeah.
built this country, right? Like different ethnicities came here and there were nannies and
Yeah, man.
Asians. They
My
just
man
removed
came here as a nanny.
they just removed the head tax on Asians in the early 1980s.
Mm.
Are you joking? Right? Like we
Yeah.
still haven't even hit a lot of our first. My mother's like the second black woman lawyer in Ontario.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous in 1984.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So we still don't have a lot of our firsts. We don't have a black this. Like it's just recently like Judge McLeod and like, you know what I mean? Like we don't have a lot of these firsts, right? So we have to stop making excuses for the system that is like developed to like hold us down. We have to stop making excuses. We've internalized those things and said, yeah, you know, it's like the women men argument where the women are like, yo, I don't, yes, you deserve to have certain things.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you don't have to take a garbage. I don't mean a garbage man. I mean a garbage man. Garbage men are good guys. But you know what I mean? No, some girls should look at a garbage man, right? A garbage man.
I don't think they call him garbage man anymore.
Oh, sorry, a custodial engineer,
Oh,
right?
okay.
You know, like you know, like and even in terms of that, like we have to change our mentalities in terms of the ways that we see things, like the
Oh,
way that we see trades, for instance,
right.
right? Like we have to start engineering and curating our children's lives. Other communities I speak to, you know, like I have friends in other communities. They're like, okay, that child looks like he is good at math. I'm going
Hmm.
to steer him in that direction.
Yeah.
Right.
That child is very creative and whatever. I'm going to steer him in that direction.
Yeah.
Right? So you, Pitney, are going to be the accountant. You are going to be the business person, and you're going to be our lawyer.
Okay, but you know what though? You know, listen, I'm hearing everything that you guys are saying, and all I keep thinking is the only way for us, I think we at our age in our like almost 50s, which is
Who's almost 50?
I know.
I don't know who you're talking to.
I'm saying it and I'm
Uh,
like,
I
oh
don't know.
my.
I don't even agree.
Okay.
What?
Anyway, I think that we are a little bit, because our parents were the first generation Canadians, and let me see if I'm going to say this right, but we have had a very different upbringing than our parents. We're a lot more vocal. We're a little bit more assertive, our particular age, I think, than our parents. And I say this, hang on, and I say this only because our parents, I believe, coming from the generation that they came from, and I want to say this delicately, there's a lot of damage. You know, I think there's a lot of damage that's been done to our parents, whether it be abuse that they don't even know they went through. You know, there's a lot of stuff that our parents haven't really dealt with. And so then they have us, and we're here in another country. We're the first generation, and they're doing the best that they can, but we're being brought up in such a, how can I say, an out there kind of way where we're expressive. You know, we don't really care what they say. They don't know. And then we get busy, and now we have our kids. And I know a lot of people are my age have kids a lot older than me. Like my kids are 7 and 9, and some of us have 20 something year olds.
Yeah, you're a late one.
What's that?
You're a late bloomer when it comes.
Yeah, I'm a late bloomer. Okay. But like, I mean, while you were trying to figure out your stuff, your kids are up and coming. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like now there's less time to have conversations about you're into math, so let's guide you in that direction. Or
I agree with that.
there's something missing, and I think I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's we're not taking the time. I don't know if it's that we're trying to deal with our own stuff.
Remember when you were dating, Kathy?
Yeah.
Remember, like there was a guy and you wanted to talk to you, and you didn't have time for him, and then there was a guy that you really liked, and all of a sudden you had time.
Yeah.
We make time for what's important,
Right.
And I feel it this too, just like everybody else does.
Mhm.
But we have to change our priorities. We will find 20. Just look at your. I don't know if you're you're not an iPhone.
No.
You know what I mean? But
I'm an iPhone person.
yeah, check your screen time.
Right.
Right? Check your screen time, and you will realize that you spend 20 hours a week. My daily average is 5 hours and 56 minutes. Right?
Online.
On social media?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? 6 hours.
Wow.
Well, my screen time period is down. This is actually 6 hours a day on the phone. I've
Right.
been off the phone since this COVID thing started. But
Mhm.
we find time to be on social media. We find time. I watched the whole season of Black AF today,
Yeah.
right? We find time to do certain things. We have to find time to do others, right?
Yeah.
And I feel in this regard too, because it's a stressful life that we're living. You know what I mean? I didn't spend 6 hours with the kids. You know what I
Right.
mean? But we have to, like, even if it's just those things, where we sit down for one night and say, all right, this child is, I told X amount of people about well, the kids are Kayla's out of high school, but um blueprint.ca, where
Yeah.
you can put in the information and track where your kids are going if they drop grade 10 math,
Hmm.
all the programs that are not available to them. Yeah, that's wicked. Are you going to do it? Probably not, right?
Right.
Well, it takes one night to say, just like in our relationships at this age, I don't know who's single and who's not single. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what you want, at least you know what you don't want, right?
Right.
So if we go through the things with our kids and we're like, do you like this? No, I'm afraid of blood. Okay, well, nursing is out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we can map and see where they're going and guide them. The name of
Yeah.
the game is,
And I agree with you, but I guess my point was that, we all have our stuff that we're dealing with. And that's, I think, how we're able to drop the ball and miss those opportunities.
yeah,
And I think that happens too often. My parents never taught me about finances at all. To
okay.
be honest with you, if somebody said to me, gosh, what does your dad do? I think I was in university and I could still barely explain what my dad did for a living because they just didn't talk about stuff like that.
So if we're going to
So,
be better, we have to have the ability to get past our past.
right.
So,
And,
so he didn't teach you about finance.
right. So it's
So
for me to learn so that I can take
yeah.
the time.
So now that again, it's like, and it's not as simple. I don't want to make it simplistic, like, oh, you just do it. It's not that easy
No.
because, like, if you don't have guidance, you just don't have guidance,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
But you have to, like, we just don't know about things. And this is, again, back to the Sunday school thing. I started working out of the library as a third space,
Mhm.
right? Before this all started. I was like, if you go there on a Saturday morning, there's people lined up. We
Mhm.
don't know that there's free passes for the Royal Ontario Museum, the AGO, the Science Center. Okay, cool. We don't know that you can put something on your bank account that says every time you tap your card, you can take $1 and put it in savings account.
50 cents, yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like 50 cents, $1, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? We don't know all of these things. So if somebody knows it, we need
Yeah.
to pass it on instead of, like, holding it to ourselves,
Yeah.
right? If somebody knows how, like, you get into property or you get into development or you get into, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know until the other day when I went live for COVID that you should take out, like, that. Well, I know that there's, like, life assurance, like insurance policies that have savings portions, but I didn't know that if you take out the insurance policy on your kids when they're small, that they pay that rate for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
man.
what I mean? So, like, it's like, I know a lot about these things. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Half of us don't have a will. You guys have siblings?
Mhm.
Yes, I do.
Your siblings are in line before your partner for your house.
Yeah.
Right.
What? Before your spouse?
Yep.
Really?
50%. 50%.
Oh my.
Right?
Yeah.
Your sibling is in line before, like, we don't know these things. And so it's like we have to make a conscientious decision. It's
I'll
not
be
going to
right
be all the
back.
time.
I'll
Yeah.
be right back.
It's not going to be all the time.
Yeah.
It's not going to be all the time that we're able to do things.
Yeah.
But, like, at these key moments when they matter, like when our kids are going to high school, we got to sit down
I know.
1-2 days and, like, try
Oh,
and
it's
map
before
out
high
this.
school. It's before.
Yeah.
It's
No,
now.
yeah.
Now.
It's now. Like,
Yeah.
it's sad that kids have to decide what they want to do with the rest of their lives at age
know.
7. It's
I know.
impossible. But we have to start looking at their aptitudes and saying, you know what, this one seems to have an aptitude for this.
Right.
And we have to change the mentalities of things that we say, like,
Yeah.
Black people aren't good at math.
Mm-hmm.
It's not we're not good at math. Like, I'm not good at basketball, but if I practiced,
You'll
I
be
would.
great. Yeah. And that's what I have to keep telling my son. It's funny you say math. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like because we internalize this and we internalize Asians are great at math. Yes. some Asians are great at math, some are not. Some black people are good at basketball. I can't bounce a basketball.
Right.
Save my life, right? So we have to change the mentality that says we're not good at this, we're good at this.
Right.
You're good at what you practice at, and we have to like abolish certain words from our vocabulary. And I was blessed to have a mother who said, we don't say can't. There's no such thing as can't, right? There's no such thing as impossible.
Right.
I was blessed to have that, and everybody isn't. So I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I pulled up myself from my bootstraps so you can do it. No, right? But if you know something, right? I called all my friends at the beginning of the year and I said, listen, if you know the way to the bag and you don't tell me, or you know information, and you don't share it with me this year, we're not friends. I love you from a distance. We're not friends because we have to lift as we rise. Like we have to like work as like find your village, find those people who have the same mentality and stick on to them. Mr. Johnson from Third World Books.
We can go running in our own neighborhoods, quote unquote. Shouldn't have to be that way, but at least then we don't have to fear anybody. We got our beautiful homes and our beautiful what acres and acres of land. What do you call them? Neighborhoods.
Yeah.
You know
what I mean?
Create our own.
Yeah. I was thinking something too. I mean, both my parents came up from Jamaica. Both of them weren't educated. So when I think of my upbringing, when I went to school, I couldn't come home and have them help me with my homework and stuff like that, right? So like you said, Ian, not everybody had the opportunities in certain upbringings, right? But what I took from that was I did not want that to be the same outcome for my children.
Yeah.
Right? So I took that as a motivation to say, hey, any conversation I have with my kids, I'm going to teach them what I know. I'm going to push them so they can learn as much as they can. And if we don't know something, or if I don't know something, we can learn it together, even as adults.
Yep.
Okay? So for example, yesterday I was hanging out with my oldest daughter, Nikki, and she was like, hey, Dad, can you teach me about stocks and bonds? I know a little bit about stocks and bonds, but I say, hey, you know what? Let's learn it together. Let's look at some investments together so we can learn how to generate wealth together, right? And then she could share that with her son. Her son could share that with his kids, and pass that information on, right? So you have some people who grow up in that situation and they take the easy route, saying, oh, my parents didn't teach me nothing. I'm just gonna, forget it. I'm just gonna leave my life the way it is and not succeed. And then you have people who are motivated that just want to do more. They don't want to live that life of how they were brought up. Right. And it's not, and I don't blame my parents at all. I don't blame my mom at all.
No, I mean, people did what they could with what they had, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing too, right? But like in my case, like personally, my thing is, like if my parents had one, I wanted to have two, right? If they had one, like my grandmother can't. Like actually, I went to Jamaica for the first time about 3 years ago, and I was like, "What's that out back?" And she's like, "That's an outhouse," and you get to put things in context, like. Oh, that's the outhouse. So when my mother says people don't have a pot to piss in, it's because you have to go to an outhouse. So she was scared to go outside with the kerosene lamp because there's flying cockroach on whatever, and you could fall down in the hole.
Lizard, everything.
And a lizard and all sorts of things, right? So when she says you don't have a pot to piss in, it means that you're so poor that you didn't have something to pee in the house that you would throw it in the morning, right? To come to Canada to become a judge. You know what I mean? So I'm like, we have a thought process where we pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, how we're so great. I hear like these narratives, and not to take away from a mother who's doing business with a child, because that's incredible, but it's not unique.
Right.
Like my mother took me to law school with her. You know what I mean? I was in the class, and lots of mothers are doing that. Like lots of mothers are doing that today, and it's commendable. But it's not like we have to stop saying like, oh, we're so great.
Right.
We're doing.
You do what you have to do.
We're doing what we have to do, and those women are great. Those women are great. They're like, I'm not taking anything away from them, but we celebrate mediocrity. Like we celebrate mediocrity, and we're like, look how much we've done. We're about the awards and the ceremonies and our legacy. Legacy what? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't come here and struggle. We haven't built one thing in our generation.
Yeah.
No,
Those people came here and they built the JCA and Tropicana and the black business. Read, I don't know if it's around here, but like, read Denham Jolly's book. Look at the things that those guys did. right? Like they built all the Caravana and the BBPA and all of these things. What have we built?
I think we're like the spoiled generation, us
Yeah,
early.
right. Like,
I think
you know
we
what I
are
mean? We're
because
educated.
we
We've
are
done
first
very well for ourselves.
because
We've
we're
done
first
very,
generationers,
yeah.
right?
We've
Parents
we've
wanted
done,
to give us the world.
yeah. But if
Well,
we're gonna be better,
I don't know about
yeah.
giving the world,
No, so yeah, yeah. So they
That's what
came.
they thought. That's why they came here.
Yeah.
They
So
thought
they came here. Yeah, they came here to give us a better life. But
yeah,
if we're going to give our kids a better life, we have to give them not what we didn't
better.
have, but what we didn't know.
That's right.
Right? We can't give them, like, you know, and I learned this, and we can learn from our kids. I remember when Kayla was small, she was in Montessori, and I took her to the grocery store, and my parents were West Indians, and so I never got Lucky Charms and
Right.
fruit roll-ups and these kind of things. Right? So I was at the grocery, and I'm like, I'm gonna be cool, Dad. I was like, what do you want, fruit roll-ups? And she was like welling up with tears. I was like, what's wrong with you?
Uh-huh.
And she was like, oh, you know, at my school, like, you're like, nobody eats those things. We eat healthy snacks. And I was like, oh boy, look at this. It's the people that you're around and the mentalities of the parents and the
Yeah.
people that you're around that will shape your children.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like my mother, I live here. It's not accidental I live here. I was like, if she's gonna be in the public school, she's gonna be at Agincourt because she's gonna be with the kids that it's not the mentality, who's the prime minister? I don't know that right?
Right.
Who's the prime minister? I don't know. Oh, look at this dummy. She doesn't know who the prime minister is. Where the mentality is excellence. It's not, it's cool to be stupid.
Right.
Right? It's cool to know things, it's not cool to know things. You know what I mean? So my kids are blessed to have my parents, and I'm blessed to have had my parents. But again, if we don't, like, I got to speak it into Duke, and I got to speak it into you so that you think about it, because maybe you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, yo, if you attach your thing and every time you tap your card, you save 50 cents. And
That's
if every time you save 50 cents, you take it and you put it in an RESP.
Yeah.
Or if you know that, like, that my life insurance policy on my house mortgage is garbage, if I took that $56 a month and put it into the thing, then I could get another 500,000 on my insurance.
Right.
You know what I mean? Speaking of the hold on, Pop. Hi, buddy. Daddy's just doing an interview. I'm gonna call you right back, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, it's okay, buddy. I'll talk to you in a few. Love you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. So
Polite.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and this is what I'm saying. Like, we have to raise polite children. We need to raise, like, my children. Actually, you know what? Let me ask him. Right? Like, my children know, right, that they can do anything, right? Except, watch. They can do anything in the world, right? Pop, buddy.
Yeah.
What's the rule? You're allowed to say anything that you want as long as
I'm polite about it.
as long as you're polite and respectful about it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well
Thank you, buddy. I love you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye.
Right?
That's awesome.
You've
Yeah.
seen it
No, like-
first. It's only on the Life Stripes with Kathy and Duke show.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like my children are critical thinkers. My daughter is like, yo, Daddy, you're a sexist. And I was like, I'm not a sexist. And she's like, London is you're always talking to London about his little girlfriends, but I'm not allowed to have a boyfriend until the end of university.
That's
I
right.
was like, all right, you know what? You're right. You're completely right. No girlfriends or boyfriends for anybody. You know what I mean? But like, until she said it, I never once thought about the double standard in my own house.
Right.
And so
I think every male's like that though with his daughter.
Yeah.
you know what I
That's a
mean? So
given.
yeah, so like, we need to, if I know something, I need to teach you. If I need something, instead of this hoarding information thing.
Agreed.
Take one person and mentor them. We don't have any mentorship.
Yeah.
We need think tanks, and we need mentorship, and we need, and it's not macro, it's micro. Like, take 10 people, go to LaToya Fagan's catering place,
Love
right?
her. Mm-hmm.
Right? Where she has like space, put them around a table. We're going to go out to dinner anyway, right?
Yeah.
And sit down and talk about ideas.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the first show on like, people are in trouble. So the first show will be entrepreneurship. how to start a business, sole
Yeah.
proprietorships, partnerships, incorporation, bring on the accountant. When do you pay taxes? 30,000 HST, ting, ting, ting. We don't know. How do you register the business?
True.
What is brand?
True.
Is it logo? No, it's not. It's what people think about you. It's trade names. It's this. We don't know these things.
Yeah.
If we don't know these things and we don't share them,
Yeah.
might as well sell each other into slavery, guy.
So Ian, would you say it would be a great idea for us to put on a seminar where we get some of these people that are the Black educators out there all into one room and make it that melting pot and start teaching our youth these things? Let's
Definitely. Like, I mean, that's what I'm going to do. Literally, like, COVID has pushed me, and COVID is a reset, right? COVID has pushed me to do.
Hey, that's what I've been saying for forever.
Yeah, like it's pushed me to do some things and given me the opportunity and the time to do some things that I've wanted to do in the physical world that I'm now forced to do in the digital world, right? Like that Sunday school project, which was supposed to be a physical project. This is way better because once I'm finished doing like this stuff can live online forever.
Yeah.
100%.
Like we don't have language and we don't write things down, right? But now we have technology, right? So now the knowledge can be passed. I can do the interview, 60 people can watch it, and 300 can watch it later, and then 10,000 can watch it later. You know what I mean? Because it's there. You don't know where to find CERB information? It's on my website.
Yeah.
You don't have to have watched the thing. You know what I mean? So like, this is this thing that we're in, this pandemic or whatever it is that we're in, is an opportunity as well, right? To evolve. You know what I mean? And it's going to create the next wave of. I know we're way off topic. We started at like why I was not. Why I was not.
I'm about to get to our final thoughts before I go.
I was just thinking we bring it back to, like, you know what? It's one of those things where you take a murder, like what just happened to Ahmaud Arbery, and it's like there has to be a fire in us. I know it's a fire because we're pissed off, but the fire really just has to be about everything you just said, about educating ourselves, empowering ourselves, you know, banding together and creating something magical and beautiful and bigger than we could have even imagined, really, to be honest.
Into that political power, man. We need to get into that political power.
Absolutely.
So I'm out of time, but give me your final thoughts on how we can do better and be better.
So as I said, like I think the key to moving past our past is our ability to get past it, is to say, you know what, like with my son, you know, like the other day I made a huge mistake and I was like, we're play fighting and he had a little hissy fit. And I was like, man up. And I was like, that's not good. Like you're allowed to cry, not for that, because you were ramping with me first, but you're allowed to cry. You know what I mean? Like, get past the toxic masculinity. Talk to our kids about economics. Talk to our kids about, as sad as it is, it's a conversation that we can't skim over. Talk to our kids about race relations.
Yeah.
Talk to our kids. Take them, whether it's a little book like London has, and he's like, I get $10 every week, right? If daddy doesn't give you the $10, what do I have to give you? Interest. Like, you know what I mean? And he's adamant about it. He's like, yo, where's my money, guy? You know what I mean? Like, track your money and keep track of it and understand saving, because this is the rainy day that I was telling Kayla about, right? Like saving and investment, and so economics, politics, family, community, health and wellness, mental health, physical health. I'm not in shape myself. You know what I mean? Like, all of these things are critical to our advancement. Supporting ourselves, self-empowerment, owning the means of production, right? It's cool to have a clothing company, but if you don't own the screen press or own the embroidery machines, then you're just putting the money in elsewhere as well. But you don't start at the top either. So sometimes you have to manufacture somewhere else and whatever and take it and re-up and take it and re-up and buy that machine and do whatever. You know what I mean? So, you know, these are all of the things that we need to know, and like we need to share information and mentor and make sure that we give back. You know what I mean? And lift as we rise.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Kathy,
I don't know how to top that. I think I echo everything that you said. You know, really.
Go Scarborough.
Scarborough, yeah, woo woo. You know, communication. For me, it always boils back down to communication. And just as you teach your children, you can say anything you want as long as it's polite and respectful. You know, that's the key right there. And I think, you know, whether Black, within the Black community, outside the Black community, white, Black, Chinese, Indian, whatever the case may be, you know, as long as we're speaking respectfully and with love, and
And
not
to each other and not at each other.
to each other, exactly, and not at each other, and not looking at the color of our skin, you know, whatever, as a way to judge whether something's good or bad or whatever. Because this is not okay. You know, as we can see, it's almost like during this whole pandemic, the lines have completely been blurred, globally. You know, every one of us has affected the other, hence why this thing has spread the way that it has. You know, and if that's no indication of just it, when it comes to energy, it's going to go one way or it's going to go another way. You know, and I think we all have the choice to make. So collectively, if we can just figure out a way to love each other, my God. And I know it sounds so simple, but
And flowery like the flowers in your background.
What's that?
And flowery like the flowers in your background.
And bright and sunny, and let's all just get along, damn it. You know, I fear for my children, and I think that's my biggest concern. I don't want to believe that my children are growing up, you know, still in a day where this shit.
Unfortunately, they are, though.
I know.
And we can't cover our eyes and pretend that it's not happening.
Racism is real.
I try to, but I know.
Racism is real, Kathy.
Yeah, so that's it for me.
Well, Ian, thank you, ma'am.
Duke got the last word on that one, eh? Right. Racism is real.
It's real. Ian, thank you for being a guest on our show. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Looking forward to talk to you again on another episode so we can get into promotions and all the wonderful things that you do in the community.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
We will talk soon.
Sure. This is another episode of Life Stripes with Kathy and Duke. Everybody have a good night. Don't forget to subscribe and like what you've seen. And we'll be back on Monday with another episode at 3 p.m. Peace.